Hi, I'm with Courtney today, and we're going to be talking about relationships.
So, what are the five biggest difficulties that people encounter in relationships?
Well, it's interesting that you picked out the number 5 because, in truth, people real often think there's a whole lot of reasons that we have difficulties in relationships. But it actually comes down to just a few challenges that we have in relationships, and it can be boiled down to 5 or 6. And one of the biggest ones is being on autopilot. The habits that we create before we ever come into a relationship, these habits real often are what causes conflict.
So, habits, is that what I'm hearing you say? Habits are the biggest conflict causers?
Well, I think of it more as being on autopilot. So uh, that's a different way of verbalizing habits, and it starts in childhood real often, but many of the habits that we have also are created in relationships.
Got it, being an autopilot. And so these can be really deeply ingrained starting in childhood, you said.
That's exactly right. They can start in childhood. So, for example, the way that a person experiences relationships with parents, with friends, with siblings. Uh, Also, a person might experience some deep trauma, some things that are very painful, assaults. That could be a very difficult thing that a person causes a person to bring that into a relationship. Or another example is a, a couple is together for many years and they get into habits of being with each other, and one person might say, it feels as if we that the love is gone. It feels that we're just roommates. Those are some examples of habits of being on autopilot, things that need to be corrected that cause problems in relationships.
Right, okay, so what would you suggest couples do in order to overcome these?
And that's the $1,000,000 question. So the simple answer is self-awareness. All of these things that we're talking about, I like to think of it as being inside of a bubble. And that bubble includes thinking, ways of feeling, and beliefs that we have about ourselves, about the world, about money, about love, about relationships. And making those changes, becoming aware of it, is like stepping outside of the bubble, seeing ourselves and going, oh, that's why I get triggered so much. Oh, I can see that I am being very reactive whenever my partner does this thing. Oh, I can see that my mind keeps spinning and I keep thinking these things over and over again, and it makes me very anxious, very angry, very sad, very frustrated.
So, we're talking about on a really fundamental level, it sounds like you're even starting to observe your own thoughts.
That's right. That's what we're attempting to do, and that's the beginning of making these changes. It's the beginning of healing, the beginning of transformation, the beginning of creating the life that we would actually like to live. You can't do it until you begin to observe yourself, see yourself, as you're saying, in a fundamental way, observing what you're thinking, what you are feeling, how you're reacting, how you're being triggered.
Okay, so then autopilot, if that's our biggest problem we're facing, then self-awareness is the key to beginning to overcome that.
That's right. And I'm not sure if it's the biggest problem, but it's a really big problem for us, being on autopilot, having these habits that are consuming us, and having self-awareness, bringing mindfulness to the equation, making that a part of the solution is one of the most fundamental things that we can do to create the life and relationship that we would like to create. And what I would like to do in our next video is go into more depth about exactly how to do that.